There are three luxury SUVs sitting on used car lots right now that most buyers walk past without even slowing down. And that may be one of the most expensive mistakes they make. These vehicles once sold for $50, $60, even $80,000. But today, some of them cost less than a new economy crossover with cloth seats and a four-cylinder engine working harder than a rented mule. Dealers have trouble moving them because buyers see an old luxury badge and immediately imagine warning lights, leaking suspension, and repair bills written by a man wearing a Rolex. But these are not the usual European money pits. Underneath the leather, wood trim, and outdated navigation screens, all three are connected to some of the most proven Japanese engineering ever sold in America. The first one is basically a Honda family hauler wearing a nicer jacket. The second is a full-size V8 truck that depreciated so violently it now costs less than some used compact SUVs. And the final vehicle is the one that makes Toyota 4Runner prices look completely ridiculous, because it gives you a Japanese-built V8, real four-wheel drive hardware, and Land Cruiser family DNA without the Land Cruiser price. None of these vehicles is perfect, and none of them will survive neglect just because there is a Japanese badge on the grille. But buy the right year, inspect the right areas, and keep up with the fluids. And each one has the potential to become the kind of SUV you drive until your neighbors have replaced their new crossover twice. The first hidden bargain is the 2017 through 2020 Acura MDX. Most people dismiss the MDX with the same 5 words: it is just a fancy Honda. That is supposed to be an insult, but for a used car buyer, it may be the best compliment a luxury SUV can receive. A clean 2017 MDX can often be found for roughly $15,000 to $22,000, depending on mileage, trim, condition, accident history, and location. That is an enormous drop from an original price that could climb above $50,000 in SH-AWD form. For that money, you get 3 rows, a quiet cabin, leather seating on most examples, strong safety equipment, available all-wheel drive, and a naturally aspirated V6 instead of a tiny turbocharged engine being pushed to move a heavy family vehicle. The 3.5-liter V6 produces about 290 horsepower, and when it is healthy, it delivers exactly what most older buyers actually want. It starts every morning, merges without drama, cruises quietly, and does not need a complicated collection of turbochargers to make useful power. Acura was not experimenting with some brand new engine concept here. This V6 belongs to Honda's long-running J-Series family, and independent shops across America already know how to service it. Parts are available, basic maintenance is familiar, and you do not need to find a specialty mechanic hiding behind a velvet rope. The MDX is also the easiest vehicle on this list to live with every day. It is not as thirsty as the 2 V8 SUVs coming later, it fits into a normal garage, and it drives more like a large car than a body-on-frame truck. That matters if you are retired, commuting, carrying grandchildren, or simply tired of wrestling a 6,000-pound vehicle through a grocery store parking lot. The SH-AWD system is especially useful in rain and snow, but do not assume the letters on the tailgate make maintenance optional. The rear differential fluid needs to be serviced with the correct Honda or Acura fluid, and a neglected system may shudder, bind, or make noise during slow, tight turns. Drive the vehicle in several circles in both directions during the test drive. Listen for clunks, feel for vibration, and make sure there are no warning messages. The transmission also deserves attention. These MDX use a 9-speed automatic that can feel different from an older 6-speed transmission, and some owners complained about hesitation or awkward low-speed behavior. A slight difference in shift feel is not automatically a failure, but harsh engagement, delayed movement after selecting drive, or repeated banging between gears is not something to ignore. Check the service history and confirm that the correct fluid was used. Universal transmission fluid may be cheaper on the shelf, but saving $30 on fluid is not smart when the transmission costs thousands. The other scheduled expense is the timing belt. This is not a timing chain engine, so around the 100,000-mile area, the timing belt, tensioner, and water pump should be treated as a package. Depending on labor rates, that service can cost roughly $1,000 to $1,500. That sounds expensive until you understand that it is planned maintenance, not an unexpected engine failure. If the seller claims it was completed, ask for the invoice. A sticker under the hood is nice, but paperwork is better. The infotainment system is another reason the MDX became cheap. The dual-screen setup looked advanced when the vehicle was new, but today it feels like two old tablets arguing over which one controls the radio. Test every function. Pair a phone, use the navigation, adjust the climate controls, check the backup camera, and make sure neither screen freezes or restarts. The system may be dated, but dated technology is better than broken technology. There is also one serious item that cannot be skipped. Certain 2016 through 2020 MDXs were included in a connecting rod bearing recall, and federal investigators have examined additional failures involving vehicles outside the original recall population. Before buying any MDX from these years, run the VIN through the official recall database and ask an Acura dealer whether every open campaign has been completed. Listen carefully during a cold start for abnormal knocking, and do not let a seller warm the engine before you arrive. This does not mean every MDX has a bad engine, but it does mean buying one without checking the VIN is gambling with money you do not need to gamble. If the recall history is clear, the transmission behaves properly, the timing belt service is documented, and the all-wheel drive fluids have not been ignored, the MDX can be a very smart family SUV. Well-maintained examples have a reputation for reaching 200,000 miles, and some can go beyond 300,000, but maintenance history matters more than the number showing on the odometer. I would rather buy a 120,000-mile MDX with one owner and a folder full of receipts than a 70,000-mile example that spent its life getting the cheapest oil change available whenever the dashboard started complaining. At around $16,000 to $20,000, the MDX is the sensible choice here. It is comfortable without being enormous, luxurious without being too complicated, and boring in exactly the way a dependable used vehicle should be. Current pricing guides put many 2017 examples in the mid to upper teens, while lower mileage dealer listings can still reach the low 20s. Acura officially rated the 2017 V6 at 290 horsepower, and the recall check is essential on affected vehicles. But the second SUV makes the MDX look almost normal, because this next vehicle once cost more than many people's first house, and has now fallen into used Camry price territory. The 2015 through 2019 Infiniti QX80 is what happens when the market forgets an entire luxury brand, while the vehicle itself keeps doing its job. A 2018 QX80 originally carried a price around the $70,000 range before options, and today, the average value of many examples has dropped to roughly $19,000 or $20,000. Cleaner, lower mileage vehicles may cost more, while high mileage versions can fall well below that. That is not ordinary depreciation. That is the used car market, leaving a V8 luxury truck in the clearance aisle. Why is it so cheap? The Infiniti badge does not carry the same resale power as Lexus. The styling is large and unusual. It drinks fuel. It takes up real space in a garage. Tires and brakes cost more than they do on a Honda CR-V. Many suburban buyers would rather finance a new mid-size crossover with a giant touchscreen than explain to their neighbors why they bought a used Infiniti the size of a studio apartment. All of that bad news for the original owner becomes good news for the second or third owner who understands what is underneath. The QX80 uses a naturally aspirated 5.6-liter V8, producing 400 horsepower and 413 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a 7-speed automatic, and four-wheel drive versions include high and low ranges. Properly equipped, it can tow up to 8,500 pounds. This is not a soft crossover with an off-road appearance package and a snow mode button. It is a body-on-frame SUV, closely related to the Nissan Patrol, sold in demanding markets around the world. That does not make it indestructible, but it does explain why the basic structure feels so heavily built. Close one of the doors, and it sounds like you just shut a bank vault. Put your foot down, and the V8 does not ask permission from a turbocharger before the vehicle starts moving. It simply goes. Inside, you get the kind of old-school luxury that ages better than people expect. Thick seats, real physical controls, a high driving position, space for 7 or 8 passengers, and enough cargo room for family trips, hardware store runs, or towing weekends. The technology is not modern, especially before the newer infotainment updates, but a vehicle does not need 12 menus to turn on the air conditioning. The QX80's biggest weakness is not hidden. It is fuel. Expect around 14 miles per gallon in city driving and roughly 20 on the highway under favorable conditions. If you drive 25,000 miles every year, this may not be the bargain you think it is. If you drive fewer miles, need real towing ability, and plan to keep the vehicle for a long time, the purchase price savings may outweigh the fuel penalty. Run the numbers based on your own driving, instead of repeating what someone said in the comment section. The second weakness is that truck-sized components carry truck-sized prices. 22-inch tires are not cheap. Large brake rotors are not cheap. Replacing worn suspension parts across a 6,000-pound vehicle is not cheap. But those expenses are predictable, and you can reduce them by avoiding heavily modified examples and vehicles that spent their lives towing without proper service. During the inspection, look at the inside and outside edges of every tire. Uneven wear can point toward alignment problems, worn suspension components, or a previous owner who ignored tire pressure. Inspect the brake rotors for heavy lips, cracking, vibration, or blue discoloration. During the test drive, brake firmly from highway speed, and make sure the steering wheel does not shake. The QX80 also uses a rear auto-leveling system, and some versions have Infiniti's hydraulic body motion control suspension. These systems help a huge SUV ride flatter and maintain its height under a load. But repairs can become expensive when hoses, accumulators, sensors, or other components age. Park on level ground and look at the vehicle from behind. It should not sag to one side. Push down on each corner, listen for hydraulic noises, and look underneath for wet lines or leaks. A conventional problem discovered before purchase can become a negotiating point. The same problem discovered 2 weeks after purchase becomes your problem. Check the cooling system carefully. Look for dried coolant residue around the radiator, hoses, and reservoir. Let the engine idle with the air conditioning running and make sure the temperature remains stable. The 5.6-liter V8 creates real heat, and neglecting cooling system maintenance is a good way to turn a durable engine into a very expensive piece of garage decoration. Transmission fluid condition also matters. A dark color alone does not tell the entire story, but a burnt smell, harsh shifts, delayed engagement, or slipping under acceleration should end the test drive. Do not buy one just because the leather looks good and the salesman says his manager needs it gone today. You want service records showing regular oil changes and evidence that the transmission, transfer case, differentials, cooling system, and brakes were not forgotten. Mileage matters less than treatment. A fleet-maintained or careful owner QX80 with 120,000 highway miles may be a safer bet than a 70,000-mile example that towed a giant boat every weekend and never received anything except oil. Realistically, a well-maintained QX80 can reach 200,000 miles, and has the mechanical foundation to go farther. But fuel costs and age-related suspension repairs often convince owners to sell before the engine is finished. That early surrender is where the bargain comes from. At roughly $18,000 to $24,000, the right QX80 gives you the capability, power, and passenger room of much more expensive full-size SUVs. The wrong one gives you deferred maintenance wrapped in quilted leather. Get a pre-purchase inspection from a shop familiar with Nissan and Infiniti trucks, and tell the mechanic you specifically want the cooling system, hydraulic or leveling suspension, transmission behavior, four-wheel drive operation, brake condition, and signs of heavy towing checked. Infiniti officially rated the 2018 model at 400 horsepower, 413 pound-feet of torque, and up to 8,500 pounds of towing capacity, while current market data places many 2018 examples around the high teens or low 20s. If that sounds like a hidden bargain, the final SUV is the one most buyers overlook completely, and it may be the strangest value in the entire Japanese used SUV market. The 2014 through 2019 Lexus GX 460 is a vehicle that looks like it belongs outside an expensive restaurant, but was engineered like it might need to cross a desert on the way home. It is the automotive equivalent of a retired military officer wearing loafers. Quiet, polite, slightly old-fashioned, and far more capable than it first appears. The GX 460 is not cheap in the same way as the MDX or QX80 because Toyota and Lexus buyers already understand reliability. A clean 2017 commonly lands somewhere around $23,000 to $30,000, with mileage, rust, trim, location, and service history moving the price in either direction. That may sound expensive for a 9-year-old SUV until you compare it with a same-year Toyota 4Runner. In many parts of the country, sellers ask similar money for a V6 4Runner with a more basic interior and fewer luxury features. The GX gives you a 4.6-liter naturally aspirated V8, full-time, four-wheel drive, low range, a locking center differential, body-on-frame construction, a solid rear axle, and an interior that still feels expensive even after the navigation screen has become a historical artifact. The V8 produces 301 horsepower and 329 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers do not sound dramatic in a world of turbocharged engines producing giant horsepower figures. But the GX is not trying to win a drag race. It is designed to deliver smooth power, pull consistently, and operate without the heat and complexity of turbochargers. Properly equipped, it can tow up to 6,500 pounds. The GX shares its basic global family with the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, which helps explain the heavy-duty frame, full-time four-wheel drive system, and real transfer case. This is not a luxury crossover pretending to be a truck. It is a truck pretending to be a luxury crossover. That distinction matters when the pavement ends, when snow covers the road, or when you plan to keep the same vehicle for 15 years. The GX also has one major advantage over the QX80: size. It is still heavy and thirsty, but it is narrower, easier to place on the road, and less intimidating in normal parking lots. You sit upright, visibility is good, and the controls are simple. The ride is softer than a 4Runner. The cabin is quieter, and the V8 rarely feels stressed. For an older driver who wants a durable SUV without climbing into a massive, full-size truck, the GX can be an excellent compromise. But do not confuse Toyota durability with immunity from age. The first inspection point is frame rust. Surface rust on an older truck is common, especially in northern states. Heavy scaling, swelling metal, holes, weakened mounting points, or rust around suspension brackets are reasons to walk away. The frame is the foundation of the entire vehicle. A perfect leather interior cannot compensate for a frame returning to the earth. This is why a 100,000-mile GX from Arizona, Nevada, Texas, or another dry area can be a better purchase than a 60,000-mile example that spent every winter bathing in road salt. The second issue is coolant leakage from the engine valley area. Some GX460 engines develop a leak beneath the intake where sealant or related components age. Look for a slowly dropping coolant level, a sweet smell after driving, or pink and white residue running down the rear or side of the engine. This repair can require significant labor because components above the leak must be removed. It is not proof that the entire engine is bad, but it should be discovered before you agree on a price. The third area is the suspension. GX models may use KDSS hydraulic components, and luxury trims can include rear air suspension. These systems improve ride quality and body control, but old hydraulic lines, accumulators, height sensors, or air components can add real expense. Make sure the vehicle sits level, changes height correctly when equipped, and does not display suspension warnings. Listen for clunks over broken pavement, and inspect the inside edges of the tires. The fourth weakness is simple: fuel economy. Expect roughly 15 miles per gallon in the city and around 19 on the highway. The GX drinks fuel with excellent manners, but it still drinks fuel. The third row is also tight. Cargo space behind it is limited, and the side-hinged rear door can be annoying in tight garages. The infotainment system feels old, and upgrading it is not always as simple as replacing a radio, because vehicle settings may be integrated into the factory unit. These are honest compromises. The GX is not the best choice for a family that needs adult-sized third-row space every day, and it is not the vehicle for someone trying to minimize gasoline costs. It is the vehicle for the buyer who wants a comfortable, old-school Japanese truck that can handle bad weather, towing, rough roads, and very long ownership. With clean fluids, cooling system maintenance, proper oil changes, and early repairs instead of deferred repairs, the GX460 has a reputation for reaching 250,000 to 300,000 miles, and some go farther. But do not buy mileage. Buy condition. Buy service records. Buy a clean title. Buy the driest frame you can find. Spend $200 on a proper inspection before spending $25,000 on the vehicle. Ask the mechanic to remove the cosmetic engine cover. Inspect for coolant residue. Examine the KDSS and suspension lines. Scan every control module. Check transfer case operation. Measure brake and tire wear. And inspect the frame with the vehicle on a lift. A seller who refuses an independent inspection has just completed the inspection for you. Walk away. The GX is the strongest final choice here, not because it is the cheapest, but because it combines Lexus comfort with real Toyota truck hardware. And the market sometimes prices it dangerously close to a less powerful 4Runner. Lexus officially equipped the 2017 GX with a 301 horsepower V8, full-time four-wheel drive, low range, a lockable center differential, and a 6,500-pound towing rating. Current listings show that condition and mileage can move 2017 examples from the low 20s into the upper 20s and beyond. So which one should you buy? If you want the lowest operating costs, easier parking, three-row family practicality, and Honda parts availability, buy the best-maintained Acura MDX you can find after completing the recall and service history checks. If you need maximum space, serious towing capacity, V8 power, and do not mind feeding it gasoline, the Infiniti QX80 may be the biggest depreciation bargain of the three. But if you want the vehicle most likely to make you question why anyone pays more for a used 4Runner, the Lexus GX 460 is the one to hunt for. It is not dirt cheap, but hidden value does not always mean buying the lowest priced vehicle. Sometimes it means paying fair money for something built far better than the market realizes. These SUVs are sitting on used car lots, while buyers sign 72-month loans on brand new crossovers packed with touchscreens, tiny turbo engines, and monthly payments that follow them longer than some marriages. The smart buyer does not chase the newest badge or the largest screen. He checks the frame, checks the fluids, reads the service records, runs the VIN, pays for a pre-purchase inspection, and buys the vehicle the market forgot. That is how you avoid a money pit. That is how you beat depreciation. And that is how a used luxury SUV becomes cheaper than a new economy car, long after the original owner has already paid for the expensive part.